Okay, tribe, open disclosure. Michael Leonard was introduced to me by my wife, Tracy, who is the way smarter one in our relationship. Not introduced per se, but Michael, she was sending me DMs saying, "You got to check out Michael Leonard." So here you are, man. So good to have you join our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. This is really awesome. I appreciate it. And tell your wife thank you again.
She is the smart one. Listen, for those folks who don't know you yet, wicked smart golf. You're a player yourself, writer. You've written a book, and you're a podcaster too. So why don't you give us the bio before we dive into the material?
Yeah, definitely. So I got started playing golf like 25 years ago. So it's been kind of part of my life for a long time. I played in high school very unsuccessfully, and I had a really big kind of improvement though, and dropped about 50 shots actually in high school. So 124 was my first tournament freshman year, and a 74 my first tournament senior year. So I kind of caught the golf bug, as you can imagine. And I think that probably inspired all this, and that was 20 years ago. But from then, golf has really always been a really big moment in my life, and I really just love the game. And I'm sure we'll cover a lot of that today. But so that's kind of how I got started playing. And then I had arguably the world's worst college tryout you could ever have. Happy to share that. Just the cliff notes if you want it. I was 17. I fly down to Southern California with my dad to check out the school. Again, I was far from like a child prodigy, if you will. I was not someone that was being recruited or anything, but always loved golf and, was kind of trending up. And so I just remember going out there, and I had a tryout with the college coach and a couple of the players, and we were on the first tee, and the putting green was right there. All the players for the men's and women's team right there. And I just remember it was like one of those moments where you just like kind of blacked out. It was like, what just happened? All I remember was topping my first tee shot right into the lake in front of the whole team and coach, and going on to make, I believe, a quad on the first hole. And as you can imagine, the rest of the day did not go very well. But full circle moment, I was able to go back to that school, do an open tryout, made it the first year, redshirted, and then played again second year. So it was just kind of funny to see what can happen sometimes if you just kind of persevere those tough times. And I think that's probably where maybe the seed of wicked smart golf really was planted at that young age.
What a cool story. And everyone listening to this, they can sympathize because we've all been there. The inspiration for the name, Wicked Smart. You're not from Boston, but so tell me about that.
So I hate to let everybody down, but yes, I'm not from Boston. I am a huge movie guy. In fact, I tried to work in Hollywood right out of college. I've just always loved the entertainment world. I went to acting classes. In 2017, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the next stage of my life, and I was trying everything. And so I've always loved Boston movies. I blame Ben Affleck. Too many great movies out there. Good Will Hunting and The Town and Departed. So I always loved all the Boston movies, and always wanted to create something for the mental golf world. And so they always kind of came together, and that's how Wicked Smart Golf was born. And I have quite a few listeners from Boston, and they really love my fake accent that I'm able to throw up there. So every episode, I always start with, "Hey, this is Michael Leonard from Wicked Smart Golf, aka Wicked Smart." So I like to always throw in my one acting class that I got. And funny enough, in that acting class, the first monologue I was given was Ben Affleck in Boiler Room. So it's kind of a funny moment.
It's like serendipitous, man.
It is.
Right. Every second, no, every third tip of these how to play consistent golfs you have to do in your northeastern accent. And I partner while I'm sharing screen. I partner with Municipal Apparel, and Mark Wahlberg is he's a Boston guy, so
Oh yeah, love Wahlberg. We watched his show, all his movies. Yeah, my goal is to one day figure out a way to tee it up with Mark. Big fan.
well, you better play fast if you're playing alongside him. That's one thing.
Yes, I love that. I love his I've read about those crazy routines, where he runs out and has a caddy up there that's like already got the distance, and he's running shot to shot. That's probably why he's got an 8-pack still at his age. That's impressive.
Well, that 8 pack is a function of 3 a.m. workouts too, but that's an aside, maybe another
No,
podcast.
no kidding. I got to step it up a little bit.
Okay, you've got a fantastic social media Instagram account. It is at Wicked Smart Golf. Smart for my American fans. And they're just simple, and which is why it caught my eye. Simple, easy to apply, easy to digest. I think before even the apply to one's game, and And oftentimes I feel like there's gold that's hidden in plain sight when it comes to improving golf. People just think it's got to be like rocket science and ethereal and all of this fancy dancy stuff. But my career on the tour inside the ropes, it's not. And I read a lot of your things. I'm like, this guy has spent time around the best, apparently, or otherwise you just really know how to do it. So for the folks that can go find your social media, but I just decided, folks, there was a lot of stuff I wanted to get to. And I pitched the ideas to Michael, and he's like, well, we can talk about all of it. He likes routines, just for the record. But I was like, I love this, how to play consistent golf. Because as a golf instructor deep down, I remember all of my days teaching on the range all day long. One of the first questions is, hello, how are you doing? Tell me about you. What are your goals? And the goals are always, I want to be more consistent, right? You get the odd Looney Tune that's like, I want to drive at 300, but largely folks just want to be consistent. So you list 6 ideas here. And for the folks listening on audio, go follow this on YouTube. You can check it out, or at least go to Michael's Instagram. So let me tee you up, just as conversation starters, if you will, Michael. And I want to say to you, okay, here's the concept, elaborate. So the first way to play consistent golf is to swing your swing. Now, look, in the back of my head, I have Arnold Palmer lecturing me right now. So swing your swing, off you go.
Yeah, so for me, I just think that swing your swing is very an underrated golf tip. So for me, I have played the game 25 years and played in a lot of golf tournaments, worked with some really great coaches, and I think that just looking back at what I wish I would have done earlier, specifically in high school and in college, was just to swing my swing. So I've always been, a little steep, a little over the top, hit that fade, but it's been pretty reliable. And I really went through a tough time years and years ago when I was like, I got to redo my swing. I got to get more shallow. I got to, do all these different moves. And, you're watching all the stuff on YouTube and following all these people. And it just, I kind of got to the point where I was like, what am I doing? And it felt like golf was going, the wrong way. I wasn't really improving. I had no confidence over the ball. And so I think that, watching so much golf over the years, reading so many books and just being around the game as long as I have, I started to realize I'm like, yeah, there's definitely, fundamentals and there's certain positions everyone wants to get into, but if you can just swing your swing, you're going to have so much more confidence. And obviously you've been able to be around the best players in the world. And you and I both know that everyone does it different. There really is no one textbook swing. I'd argue Tiger in 2000 probably was as close as it's going to get, but everyone's always trying to work on their game. Everyone's always trying to get better. But I feel like for me, too many everyday golfers, the people that are out there and they have jobs, they got families, they have responsibilities, right? But they want to play golf. They want to get better.
Mhm.
Then you just go down this rabbit hole of just too many swing thoughts and trying to do this and trying to do that. And it really just takes away from playing golf and gets into that playing golf swing. And, I've watched you on TV and heard all the interviews of, all people after they win. And the common theme is always, I stuck to my routine. I hit my, was really focused on my targets with my caddy. I was being committed. It's never, I was worried about P2 here. I was worried about P4 doing this. I was worried about, this technical swing thought. And I feel like if you can just kind of get to a place in your game where you have some sort of consistency and reliability, it'll just make such a big difference and help you have so much more confidence. Because when I talk to my audience and survey them and DM and talk to different mental golf coaching students, it's always they want confidence and consistency. And to me, figuring out what your swing is and owning that, and that'll probably get into the next tip as well, I
Mhm.
just think will give you a lot more confidence. So that way you're able to trust yourself, because there's nothing worse than standing over the golf ball with indecision, doubt, and thinking about mechanics for me.
Yeah, listen, many things spring to mind when you share that because you and I could mine this nugget for the rest of the show. Um, First, though, I want to talk about this because while you were talking about it, I was like, social media is where a lot of folks are finding their information. Okay. And it's a great place to go. My algorithm has found me. I get golf stuff and I get Bible stuff and I get nutrition and fitness stuff. So if I'm searching the P2, P3, P4 guy a lot, that's what's going to start to show up. And I have noticed that the algorithm now is talking to me more about, the mental side of the game. So I want to ask you, have you noticed on social that things are moving more away from technique and more into the holistic sort of sphere of things? Or is that just me and my golf algorithm right now?
Well, after just watching Full Swing season 2, I think that that is going to do a lot for mental golf coaches and just kind of identifying that. I mean, it was really great to see. I've watched the season twice, and I just loved how much these best players in the world shared about how they struggle and that they're working with people and that they're trying to overcome themselves. What's happening off the golf course can really impact you on the golf course. So I think there's definitely an awakening and a shift in society as a whole. I really like to think I got into all this like 5, 6 years ago. I quit my job. I had a really good career, and I was doing all the things that society wanted me to do, and I felt like I was really missing something. And that's when I started going to those acting classes. That's when I got back into golf. And that's when I started to think like, okay, maybe I can go out on my own and start a business and maybe even try professional golf. And so I did it, and I quit my job in May of 2017. And I just remember the first day I had all of a sudden to myself, and I'm like, going to try and build this business. I'd been a writer for a little bit. And I just remember that first 2 years was so hard and on and off the golf course. And it was when I was like, wow, the mental game is so important,
Mm.
both on and off. And that's really what kind of got me on this different quest, and, doing meditation and hypnosis and going to motivational events and just trying to understand how this mind works, because it just controls so much on the course. And we really try and think like if we're, different on the course, it's going to be different off. And I just really wanted to kind of go down a rabbit hole of that. I felt like if you're going to go down a rabbit hole, the mental game is never a bad spot, because this thing runs our life. And so I think to me, that's really when I got started. So over the last 6 years, after all the different stuff I've tried to do for myself and my mental health, that's probably what started sharing all this. And I think that as a society as a whole, you got all these apps, you got more people coming out talking about mental health in sports, in golf, and shining a light on it is great, because so many of us really try and bury it. And when we're struggling in business or in golf, it's hard sometimes to always put on that face. But man, when you can talk to someone, when you can figure out, how this thing works a little bit and figure out just some little tips and hacks, life can get better, golf can get better, your relationships can get better. So I definitely think it is trending up, and stuff like Full Swing, I love to see them putting up great content like that. I know they shot like a 900 hours or something, and they cut it down to 6. And so the fact that the mental game made it in there so much, I like to hope that the everyday golfers really learning a lot.
Yeah, I want to ask this too, because look, everyone listening to this or watching this or talking about this show and yours, and they are obviously thinking about this stuff. But it takes a certain amount of discipline to really swing your swing, because we all aspirant, right? Especially the folks downloading this. And so you want to get better. And then you switch on and you see one other golf tip from probably some dude like me. And then you're like, wow, yeah, that's mine. But I'm always cautioning folks, and I guess this fits with your swing and Arnold's. Um, you don't go take another man's medicine. That's not a good thing. Just put a capper on this observation with your take there, please.
Yeah, and I think that we're always going to try and get better. I think that's the thing with the golf swing. You never figure it out. Even the best players in the world that you're broadcasting for are always tinkering, always trying to get better. But you get to a point where you put in enough reps, your tendencies, and so when you swing your swing, you also know your misses, and that also makes it really beneficial. So that way, hopefully, if you're kind of staying on the path and understanding your own swing and your own game, if you do go into a little bit of a slump or kind of start struggling, hey, maybe it's my setup, or maybe it's my grip getting weak again, and you start to know it. So I think it just kind of comes down to really being familiar with yourself and your swing.
I love that. Folks who listen to this thing often have heard me say this ad nauseum. Because look, I'm just lucky to have know a lot of people. And Nick Felder always said to me, he goes, people should practice more for their B and C games, because everyone's practicing for their A games all the time. And I
I
guess that
love
goes
that.
along the same lines, because you're right. Know thyself, right? And then you can swing your swing, not some idea of the swing, like Arnold would say.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like when we try and swing like someone else, and it could be different body types, different ages. I mean, different injuries. There's just so many things, and it's okay to have someone that you want to model it in the beginning, and someone that you like their swing. And obviously, we get to watch some of the best players out there, and just how great their swing is. But then you see some guys that have very different swings, and they're making millions and millions of dollars. So that's why I always say, swing your swing.
You're right. Point number two, folks, if you're not watching on YouTube, is play one shot shape. Now, I want to preface you and tee you off with this. I feel like, look, we all love Tiger Woods. every professional golfer loves him. They should. He's made them a lot of money. Um,
Yes.
Tiger, though, I think sold the world a bad bill of goods because he used to speak about his 9 shots he would hit in practice, which I've seen him do. High draw, high fade, high, and then mid level, and then low. Fantastic. It's a great way to sort of keep your golf swing in its neutral. But what you say with play one shot shape, there's genius in this because the folks trying to play a whole bunch of them have got ownership of none, where you're talking about ownership of one. So please elaborate.
Yeah, and I have to give credit where it's due. I definitely got this going through Decade Golf and Scott Fawcett a few years ago. I know he's been on your show as well. And for me, this is just really like I couldn't believe how simple this was, but how funny it was when I really applied it to my game. So I went through the program in 2022. I play anywhere from 50 to 60 tournament days a year. So I play a lot of golf tournaments. I love competition. But yeah, I felt like I could get better. I felt like the swing was good. I'm hitting it good on the range, but sometimes it's just wasn't there on the course. And obviously it's golf, so you're going to have bad days and things are, off some days. Right. But I felt like I was just making golf harder on myself. And when he said play one shot shape, I was like, okay, let's try it. And I was like, what do I have to lose? And to me, it's just made the biggest difference because well, it kind of goes to the first point too. So like I said, I play a fade. I'm happy with it. I can hit a draw. It's going to be semi-inconsistent, especially depending on the club. But when I'm playing one shot shape, I can do a few things. First of all, it's easier to pick targets. Picking targets to me is key. It's part of the good pre-shot routine, getting really clear about where you want the ball to go. So it makes that a lot easier. The second thing with playing one shot shape is that you don't have to think so much. So if I try and play a draw, I am thinking mechanically. I'm thinking, okay, I got to get a little more inside here. I got to roll my hands a little bit over, just because it's not my natural go-to shot shape.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Tiger meant well, and I really do think the 9 club or the 9 like tic-tac-toe drill that he does is great for understanding club face control. So when you're on the range and you want to learn, because sometimes you might be behind a tree and you got to hit a fade or a draw, and that's not your shot. You do need to know how to do it. But I think that playing one shot shape 99% of the time is going to make it easier to pick targets. It's going to make it easier to stay out of golf swing versus just playing golf.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be a lot more reliable. I think that your misses are going to be so much better. And it's going to hopefully avoid those double bogeys, because when I talk to my listeners and coaching students, one of the biggest things is, blow up holes. I get these blow up holes. And a lot of times that happens from trying to go against your natural shot. And then you end up short sighting yourself. And then you chunk one in the bunker and now you get out of there. All of a sudden we walked away with a double when we could have just played our one shot and tried to be okay with the middle of the green. I think that we try and get a little too aggressive sometimes. And even the best players in the world, really seem to hit one shot more than the others.
Yeah, they do. Quick button on that. Colin Morikawa, you could set your wristwatch on his fade shot, right? And he went to Augusta National the first time, first Masters. A lot of holes turn from right to left. Loves a draw. Don't miss left, though. And he's like, well, I got to draw the thing. And he didn't play very well at all. Came back the following time, the wise young man he was. He's like, nah, I'm just going to hit my shot. And things worked out a whole lot better. All right. I know you're a routine guy. I think all of the sports psychologists I've talked with, you speak of values of routine, but you talk about not just the pre-shot, but you said develop a post-shot routine. Please share with the folks what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I think that the end of a good pre-shot routine is a post-shot routine. It really does go hand in hand because, once again, as I just mentioned, blow-up holes, they plague everyday golfers. All of a sudden you have one bad shot and then it leads to another bad shot. And there's just, again, nothing worse than just spiraling out of control and letting our emotions get the best of us. So if you have a good post-shot routine, you can hopefully kind of get some closure on that shot. And that's key, because if you hit a bad shot, again, that's going to happen. I mean, even as an advanced golfer as I am, I probably hit 7 to 10 shots I really like during the day. A lot of them are good misses and there's some bad ones out there. But the goal is to just, after a bad shot, get ourselves back into position to avoid that dreaded double. And for me, when we have a post-shot routine, we can get a little bit of closure. I'm definitely someone that I share openly on my social, on my podcast. I have struggled with anger as much as anyone on the golf course, especially younger days. And a lot of times it's just because I would have that one bad shot and I would not accept it. So then I'd be standing over the next shot, still a little angry, and my stress levels would be high. I wouldn't be able to get in the zone because I'd just be thinking too much. I'd be berating myself. And then all of a sudden, one bad drive becomes an iron shot that is just way too aggressive. Maybe I tried to hit it through a window, and it just
Mhm.
all of a sudden you make it double or triple, and you're like, why did I just let one bad shot ruin it? So if you have some sort of closure for the shot, it's just going to make golf so much easier. And so I always tell people there's a lot of triggers or different ways you can do it. One of them is the 10 steps. I think Tiger I had read once talked about it. So, you get 10 steps to be pissed off. And then once those 10 steps are done, it's on to the next shot.
Mhm.
For me, what I like to do is take my glove off. So it's like once the Velcro of the glove comes undone, I take a big deep breath, big exhale, and it's over. And then, I give myself some time in between shots. Hopefully I have a little time and I didn't flub a chip or something, but I have a little time to decompress. And then when I get up there, then I Velcro the glove again. That's a subconscious trigger to, hey, we're ready to go. We're on to the next shot. And I always tell everybody, save the analyzing for after the round, right? We're all going to hit bad shots, but the middle of the round is not the time to be like, why did I hit this 20-yard slice? Why did I just chunk this? If it's a something that happens over and over again, sure, might want to make some little adjustments. But I feel like if we're constantly thinking out there, it just makes it really hard. So if you have a post shot routine, you can kind of close the shot, and then by the time you get to the next one, hopefully you're 90 or 95 or 100% ready to go and have a lot more composure to make the right decisions and then execute the shot.
I like the Velcro thing. Nobody else does that. I've heard other golfers say when the club goes back in the bag, it's done. This is whatever the trigger might be.
Yeah, have some sort of trigger. I think that's key. Dr. Parent of Zen Golf, I had him on the show, and he talks about having a replacement swing. I actually really like that too. So if you make a really bad swing, instead of putting the club in the bag, make one good swing real quick of what you wanted to do, and then be like, oh, that's what I meant to do, or that's what I wanted, that's what I intended, and just kind of remind yourself. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think that hopefully, if you have some sort of post shot acceptance, it will set you up to play a lot more consistent golf.
Yeah. Okay. The folks watching on YouTube are probably like, why did Mark skip over the tee shot strategy? Um, I kind of did because I had a plan, because I've always said, and the tip was to create a tee shot strategy. And then the next way to play more consistently is to warm up before the round. So I was going to tie those two together because, oftentimes that first tee shot is one of the most nerve wracking in the game, especially if it's in a tournament, and especially if the first hole's hard. And I always say to golfers, as part of the warm up, whatever it might be, hit that first tee shot in your mind once or twice. And then I would say, well, in fact, I've heard a lot of golfers, they'll maybe play the first three holes in their mind, where it'll be like a drive and an 8-iron and a bunker shot and whatever the case might be. So you kind of, it's that last minute cram session before the test. It's the same kind of deal. So why don't you go there?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Having those two, they really go hand in hand. So I feel like if you are really trying to play consistent golf, you want to break 90, break 80, become a scratch golfer, you got to get there, at least 30 minutes early, get some sort of warm up routine in. Otherwise, it's just going to make things hard. I actually played yesterday and did not go through my normal routine. I was super rushed, and I thought the tee time was a different time. We got there, I didn't go through a routine, and it was not consistent golf the first few holes. So it's kind of ironic because some people can go out and they're ready to go after a couple swings. Some guys need 30, some guys need 60 minutes. But I think that having a warm up, especially before tournaments, or even if it's just competitive golf, maybe it's a skins game, maybe it's a club championship, a men's league, whatever it is, like having some sort of warm up routine really can calm your mind down as well too, because it's just like I do the same thing over and over again, just like a pre-shot routine. You're doing the same thing over and over again before the shot. Same thing with before the tournament. So you hear those guys, especially when the Masters sometimes are like 3 o'clock tee times, like they have so much time. They could get there 4 hours early, but that's probably not going to help things. So they still get there 90 minutes or 2 hours, whatever their routine is, and they really stick to it. So I feel like if you have a good warm up routine, and the last part of my warm up routine is always ending with the first tee shot. So like you said, if you're going to hit hybrid, make sure that last one, you go through your full routine on the range, you pick a target, you pick your intermediary target, focus on it, hit it, and then if it's the fade or the draw, whatever shot you want to hit, you want to end on a good one. There's nothing worse than ending on a bad one, so you always want to make sure and give yourself a little extra time there at the beginning. End on a good shot, so that way when you are standing on the first tee and you feel those nerves or jitters, you get excited, but you say, hey, I just did this, I know what to do, and then hopefully the routine will help it all come together.
Okay, let's be real. Um, I've been there. I guess everyone has. Where you're like, okay, I'm going to hit the first tee shot. And the first one's not struck so well, and the second one's blocked off to the right. The third one's overreacted and hooked, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shucks, what now? What would you say to said golfer? Because now it's time to go, but you want to go there with a little conviction about something.
Yeah, I think I mean I get this from Tiger for sure. It's a warm up, it's not a practice session. So the whole goal, and I just remember one time watching the PJ Tour, and I can't remember who it was, but he's like, I had an awful warm up session, and he shot 63 that day. And the same thing goes for me, and I'm sure for you and anyone else. I mean, we've all had those days where you're hitting it really good before the round, and then you get out there and you can't find the center of the face, really dependent on it. And then you've had those days where you kind of slap it around on the range, and then all of a sudden you go to the course and you're just on fire. So I really do feel like you got to have the right mindset. Again, this is where the mental game can come in different aspects. You have to say, hey, I'm hitting it good, so I'm going to hit it good on the range. Or if I'm hitting it bad, that just means I'm saving it for the range. It's just a little mental trick you have to do for yourself. Again, we have to control what we can. And to me, and I think that everyone probably has their own experiences where that's happened. So it's not like it's just my story or your story or Tigers. I think everyone's probably had those days where warm-ups weren't very good, but then you played good or vice versa. And I think at least setting yourself up for success and at least getting one good swing, hopefully will give you a lot more confidence when you head to the first tee.
Or knowing that you've got that one shot shape. So you can just set the fade off down the left center and, then you should be, because if you pull it, you're okay. If you don't, then you're still in play.
Exactly. I just think about, I always used to try and play draws because I mean they look good. Rory makes them look good. Tiger, and they just look good. But man, every time it would just when I pulled it off, it definitely felt good. But man, when it didn't, it was just this huge block fade, and I'm just off the golf course, and then you're scrambling and flustered. And so yeah, it's you need to know how to understand how to shape shots on the range for the club face control aspect, but yeah, I feel like it's just, again, setting ourselves up for success. If the best players in the world sometimes struggle with shaping shots, I think that the everyday golfer that has a job, has family, we definitely don't get to practice as much as we'd like. Make it easy. That's what I like to say. Make it easy. You're going to have a lot more fun.
Yes. And the best golfers in the world have a wingman or
Mm,
woman once in a while whose livelihood is dependent on how well the professional golfer plays. So
correct.
said wingman is the most positive dude in the world, and he is feeding you like you're great, you got this, see the shot, champ. I mean, Joe Griner, who works for Max Homer, calls him champ, and yet us regular golfers, we don't. We've got our buddy in the cart next to us who wants to beat us, or we got ourselves, and we typically talk us down to ourselves. I'd love your commentary there.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is funny whenever I've only had a caddy probably 10, 15 rounds in my life, but it is a very different experience. And so if you have a caddy that you like, it can really make a difference. But, I know a lot of guys play with their friends and coworkers and people in leagues. And, sometimes it can be that kind of support system that you need. But ultimately, you got to be your own caddy out there for the everyday amateur. And to me, that means being your own best friend. So I have a rule. I will not say anything to myself that I would not say to someone else. And
Right.
it's funny because I play a lot of practice rounds and I'll get paired with random people, and even yesterday we were playing in the first hole. The guy had a great putt, it just lipped out, and he instantly went into, I always miss putts, I'm just not that good of a putter, it's going to be one of those days. And it was. He ended up having a lot of missed putts, and it was just one of those things where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So golf is already the hardest sport out there to me. We're only making it harder if we're talking down to ourselves and being negative. And negativity just has a way of feeding into the group too. Sometimes, you have that one guy or a girl that just is super negative, and it really makes it hard sometimes. So you got to go internally sometimes. You got to know yourself. You got to be really careful about it. So I always recommend to people, like, if there's a habit you don't like, you got to first become aware of it. So if you don't like that you slam clubs, or you don't like that you curse, or you don't like if you say negative stuff, go to the scorecard and right below your score, write down a check mark. Yep, I cursed on that one, or I was really negative on that one after I missed that putt. And then you become aware of it. So once you kind of have that bad habit that you want to avoid, so self-talk, probably one of the best ones that you want to change. If you can change your self-talk and change your body language, golf gets so much easier. It's far from easy, but you're going to have a lot more fun with it too.
Yeah. Hey, about that pre-shot routine, and then the final one was track your statistics.
Yeah.
Say, for the folks not looking on YouTube, you like stick to your pre-shot routine on every capitalized shot, on good and bad days. Okay, because I know people think this is hocus pocus and it's not working, so I'll just do whatever. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I will counter that the pros are, whether it's good or bad. Probably when it's bad, they're more reliable and more consistent about it. And then the last one was track your statistics after the round to assess your game. And I want to add to that on good and bad days too, because
Mm.
I've seen golfers go, well, we'll just throw that bad day out, or not my best ball striking day. Let's just I think having an honest assessment of oneself is crucial to consistency, correct?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, tracking your stats is just one of the easiest ways to learn about yourself. And golf has a funny way of kind of, I guess, confusing you, because like I played in a tournament a couple weeks ago and I thought I putted great. And then I went in and did my stats and it was the worst of the four in strokes gained. And I was like, man, I really felt like if someone asked me how I did today, I'd say, wow, putted really good.
Mhm.
Numbers showed otherwise. And same thing when I looked at my stats from last year to really figure out my offseason plan. I was like, wow, my wedges and short game and just kind of 50 to 125 yards, we got a lot of room to improve there. And so it just makes it easy to assess and take away a little bit of the doubt, because I think that sometimes we're really not good at evaluating ourselves sometimes. And so when you have the hard objective data, it really just does say, hey, this is where we're struggling. If we want to get to scratch golf or we want to break 80 or whatever your goal is, it makes it a lot easier, because then you can say, hey, 10 handicaps, hit this many greens, this many fairways. This is where I need to work at. That's my goal to get to. And it just kind of takes it away from the subjective and kind of feeling side of it. And just like, here's the cold hard facts. And like you said, though, you got to do them on the bad days too, because it's easy. I would say maybe like 1 out of 100. If it's like a horrifically bad day, sometimes you need to just forget about it in my mind. And you don't even want to think about it, let alone have any evidence of it. But yeah, for the most part, those bad days are when you can learn the most.
It can be tedious. I know, doing the stats after the rounds, and that's why the professionals hire people to do this stuff now. But we don't have that luxury. But it is beneficial, and I've seen like there's certain players out there right now that when the caddies go and research the course and they look at statistics, and with whoever they'll say to the player if they're undecided, they're like, well, if you miss it over there, you got a 7 out of 10 chance of making a save. If you
Mm.
miss it over there, you got a 5 in 10 chance. So where do you think the professional's playing towards then if he can't sort of go at the flag or he's in between clubs? And I think that's where the value is too. It's not just on the good stuff. It helps you to make smarter, wicked smart decisions
Love it.
when you're in between clubs or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I think that it can feel tedious too. Don't get me wrong, but if they're listening to your show and they're serious about getting, better, and you're spending $600 on a driver, you're getting lessons, you're hiring coaches, you're doing all these things, spend the extra 20 minutes after the round to track it. And there's a lot of software out there now that does it during the round for you too. But I've kind of made it my post-round ritual. So as soon as I get home, that's the first thing I do is I, have my tournament sheet and I'll log all my notes and write it down. And I have, again, that's some closure for me, and it gives me a lot of clarity on the day. I'm not able to take, a bad day the day before into the next day. It's like, hey, we're good to go. Like, and it's kind of just giving me that opportunity to say, hey, this is what we didn't do as well today. Here, we're going to try and do better tomorrow. So I think reframing it instead of being like, man, this is tedious, this sucks. If you really want to get better, which obviously every golfer does, make it like, hey, this is a good challenge, and embrace the challenge. And hopefully you can turn those weaknesses into strengths.
Yeah, I use Upgame, which I mean, the tab basically tells you what you got to go and work on. So it directs your practice too.
Nice.
Yeah. Is there
Yeah,
any
it's
app that you recommend or you use? What do you use?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of different people with that they use. I use Decade Golf for my stat tracking. I've talked to Lou Stagner from Arcos Golf as well. A lot of people like that because you don't really have to manually log anything. It's kind of doing all the hard work for you with the grips and having everything kind of being tracked inside the app. So that's really cool. So yeah, you want to make it as easy as you can. And even if you can't, like, even if you're not using a formal stat tracking program, just start somewhere. Like I remember vividly in high school, before all this cool software we have, in my history class, I was doing pretty well. I had like 100% in class. So I kind of messed around a little bit. And I would literally be writing down fairways, greens, up and downs, bunkers, and putts. And obviously, there's a lot more data. We have strokes gained and everything now that makes it a lot easier. But even just starting somewhere, and it's just going to help you, again, become aware of, wow, maybe I do have a little bit more room to improve. But at the same time, too, when you do track stats, I think it really helps with expectations. So I talk about expectation management a lot in my book. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made early on when I really got back into golf. I went to Q school. I was playing in all these tournaments. I had these expectations that I should hit 15 fairways, 15 greens, have under 30 putts. And it's like, that's just not true. And I love the PGA Tour data. I go on there, I reference it in a lot of my work because it's just great to see. It's like even the best guys in the world are hitting about 60% of fairways, 67, 68% of greens. They miss fairways too. And these are the best players in the world. They miss greens. They only get up and down, 50% of the time from the bunkers. So it's like knowing these stats, hopefully for amateurs, takes away that pressure that you feel like you should hit this many fairways, or you should hit this many greens, or you should get up and down this many times. it to me helps kind of reset our expectations and at least takes away some of that pressure. Cause I feel like sometimes we force ourselves to feel like we got to play perfect golf to play great golf.
I'm glad you would sort of cap our conversation with that, because the tweet that introduced me to you was the one where you said the scratch handicapper only hits like seven-ish fairways around and only hits
Yeah.
10-ish greens in regulation, and they have 1.23 putts and stuff like that. And I was like, "Geez, are you serious?"
The 1.23 putts, I think, was really, really good. I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that that's good too. I mean, obviously, nobody likes to three putt. It's not fun, especially if you're 10, 15, 20 feet away. But knowing that even scratch golfers, which is a big goal for so many people, knowing that they average 1.2 around will kind of free you up. And I think it was like only 5 1 putts around. So 2 putts aren't going to be the end of the world. Obviously, tracking your stats and strokes gained will teach you where you need to improve and what areas for putting. But yeah, just again, freeing yourself up. If we think we have to play perfect golf, it's just going to be really hard. And as you know, I mean, sometimes guys can win on the PGA Tour with their B game, and that's fun when you can kind of slap it around and not hit it great, but you can still scramble. You're making some putts. That's a really rewarding feeling. And just knowing that, hey, I don't have to play perfect to play my best or put up a good number.
Sensational. Okay, every so often with a guest of mine, I close with this question. The last guest was Jordan Spieth when I asked him this, and it turned into
No pressure here, Mark. Jeez.
um. You're vastly experienced. You've been to acting school. You've played golf. You're now coaching golf. You're a performance guy. You've seen the comings and the goings. Um, so, if there's something you know for sure about golf, is there such a thing? It'll be on your tombstone or in your memoirs. I know you've written a book, but in your final thoughts, is there such a thing?
A great question. To me, if I had to think about what would be on my tombstone, it would be to just keep going, because in life, in golf, you have to just keep going. And this game makes you want to quit so many times. I even quit after college for 5, 6 years. I barely played. And when I got back and I, started a business and was doing all these things, I just realized that you have to persevere. You have to show up, and consistency will pay off. And the only reason we're even talking today is because my Instagram, because I kept trying to just post stuff to help people.
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago, I had no one following me. And so it was just showing up and being okay with failing or not having anyone see my stuff, and just be like, I know I'm going to help people. I'm just going to keep sharing, keep doing. Same thing with golf, right? We have to just show up, even if you're struggling, even if you're in a slump, professional, amateur, you just got to keep going. And so I'd say that'd probably be the biggest lesson for me.
Spieth, that's fantastic. By the way, Spieth said it's not the critic who counts,
Mm,
which is a big one too.
that's
And he
so
did,
big.
and he didn't start with that one for the record. He was giving me platitudes for a second, then all of a sudden he was like, Mark, it's not the critic who counts. And then he started to say, because I listened to those people, and if I didn't, who knows what I might have achieved already.
Mm, yeah, it's brutal out there sometimes. I can't even imagine in the pro golf world what kind of critics and criticism they get on social media and stuff. That's got to be absolutely tough. And yeah, that's why the mental game and just staying in your lane and playing your game and just trusting the process and hoping it all works out.
Beautiful. Wicked smart stuff by you. Please share with the folks where they can find you, Michael.
Yeah, so I have my book, Wicked Smart Golf, on Amazon, on Audible. My podcast got 200 plus episodes there, also titled Wicked Smart Golf. If you want to learn more about Wicked Smart Golf Academy, you can just go to my website, same name, Wicked Smart Golf. And then if you want to learn more about working together for mental golf coaching, you can just shoot me an email, michael@wickedsmartgolf.com.
Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. You're doing
Thank,
great work, and I'll get to I'll get to say I knew you win in just a few years. I'm certain.
wow, really appreciate that, Mark. Thanks again for the opportunity to be on your show.